Polish.
I
Here we
am.
go. We're live.
Welcome back, everyone. Episode 53 of Kids Deserve It. We hope you've been enjoying our weekly chats with educators and game changers from around the country. Also, don't forget, you can check us out on iTunes.
We also want to remind you that we are in the midst of our 5 days of KDI Christmas. We just gave away some Kids Deserve It hoodies today for our Instagram challenge. So we've got 2 more challenges coming up. So make sure you check out our blog at kidsdeserveit.com to see how you can join in.
Also, don't forget to join our Kids Deserve It chat on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is a busy chat. Try not to be late. Some great educators from around the country that hop in. Also, you can check out Todd's super popular Periscope right before the chat at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. This week, we got another great guest, but first, we want to introduce ourselves. I'm Adam Welcome, Director of Innovation and Technology in the Bay Area of California.
I'm Todd Nesloni, elementary school principal in Navasota, Texas. And our guest this week is Jordan Pacheba, a 3rd grade teacher out of Missouri. So thanks for being with us this week, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
We want to remind our viewers to participate in social media using the hashtag KidsDeserveIt. We love seeing what people are learning from the show, whether it's live or from the recording.
So Jordan, we got a few questions for you. So for those who don't know about you, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm from Nebraska, born and raised. I'm very energetic. I'm a first-year teacher. I've only been teaching for 76 days. I've had experiences where I've taught in China and Africa. I love running, just fun things like that.
Awesome. Well, being a first-year teacher, there's probably a lot of things that you've learned already this year. What do you think has been the biggest lesson that you've learned so far?
Being consistent. It's being that first-year teacher, being the new guy here. It's fun, and I take that to heart, but I've learned that if you're not consistent, your students are going to take advantage of that, and you're not going to have that dream classroom that you've dreamed of. So just being consistent at all times.
So I also noticed actually last week on Twitter, I think it's your pinned tweet too, that you just started blogging. Congratulations. It's how Todd and I connected about a year and a half ago over blogging. So, why blog? Tell us about the posts. Any other posts you have you thought about for down the road?
Well, when Todd first saw me on Twitter, he kind of told me to start posting more, and he threw out the idea of blogging, and I'm like, well, yes and no. And so, I decided to try it, and I wanted to talk about a day in the life of 3rd grade from my perspective and how I teach it. And so I wanted to make it very personal, very fun, just kind of showcase how I do it. And I was really surprised just how the public reacted to it. And, it's just Mondays are one of those days where I know at least the teachers at my school kind of dread, even I kind of dread it too. It's like, oh, I got to go back to work for 5 days. But at the same time, I always try to surprise the kids in some way to keep them on their toes, to make it fun. And so that was kind of my goal, to tell educators that, hey, mix it up, do things on a day that you might dread and just see what happens.
Awesome.
So any ideas for any future posts?
Not yet. There's nothing that's came to mind, but I'm hoping to write something this week.
Awesome. So, being in education, you've done some work in education outside of just this year having your own classroom. What would you say is probably the hardest part about being in education?
Managing that time outside of it, if that's a good answer. Like, especially this first year, just finding time for myself, yet focus, and then yet work focusing on education. Just finding that right balance so that way I don't get burned out has been one of the things.
Awesome.
So I think a lot of teachers, Todd and I obviously are former teachers. They always think about what school was like for them, and that kind of helps emulate what they do in the classroom. So what was school for like you growing up, Jordan?
Truthfully, like my elementary experience was an awesome one, but as I went to middle school and high school, it got worse and worse. And so I remember like there was no chance that I was going to be in education. I'm like, I'm going to go into astronomy and study the stars. But then, you know, my mom and other people and other teachers, including like my favorite one, Mr. Pelster, like, you know, you might want to consider it. And so I think part of it, my middle school and high school years, when it was such a bad experience, you know, kind of motivated me to say, hey, like I can be one of the hundreds of thousands of teachers that kind of turn it around to make it an enjoyable experience right away for kids.
Well, you know, you talked about in the blog too about Mondays, and I know you mentioned it, and you know that can be some of the days that are hard for teachers to get out of bed or to get going. You know, sometimes I'm sure you've had some of those rough days too. Some of those days where you're like, I'm over it today, or yesterday was such a terrible day that I'm still reeling from. What do you kind of do to kick your butt into gear and still show up and be your best for the kids?
You know, you just got to compartmentalize it. I remember one morning, I was wearing my nerd outfit because I'm a costume guy. You know, later this week I'm going to be Where's Waldo for the kids. But I remember one morning I was doing my nerd outfit and we were all going to be nerds that day. And a guy from the street saw me and he's like, "You're a freak." And he said some other vulgar things. And I remember like, I just thought about my kids. And immediately I'm like, you know what? You know, imagine what I'm going to do today. You know, we're going to use so much technology. We're going to just talk in nerd voices. We're going to do so many crazy things that I'm like, I can't let this one person rain on my parade. And, you know, because school was starting in an hour, and within an hour, like I didn't even remember that until the end of the day. So just focusing on my kids.
So first year teacher, you can really feel isolating being a teacher in a classroom, and you're definitely on social media and doing a great job. Like, how'd that come about? How did you think about that and realize it was something good for you to do?
It was really reading those education books, you know, like Teach Like a Pirate, Play Like a Pirate, and then Kids Deserve It. Those three really jump-started me, and they're like, you know, you really need to get out there. And so I was doing a little, but then, you know, one night Todd started social media bombing me. And so we just kind of went back and forth, and finally, you know, we messaged each other, and he really just kind of took over some mentorship and said, hey, like he believed in me and encouraged me to. And so now, you know, my PLN is like my favorite thing to do. I love being on Twitter. It gives me so many more ideas. I hope other educators are seeing this and like get on Twitter, because there's so much out there. And, you know, with the mentorship that Todd has voluntarily taken over for me, like I am benefiting so much, and like so are my kids, and so is the school. That's the cool thing.
Well, you know, it's funny because you know, we've had this conversation before outside of the show about just the amount of growth that you've been experiencing as a first-year teacher, and it's been funny listening to you because, you know, Adam and I talk quite often about teachers getting on social media and how much it could benefit them and stuff like that. But I think for you, you have a whole different perspective of just being out of school and seeing the value that's there and just connecting and going, you know what, why are there not more first-year teachers online for me to connect with? Don't you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I texted that to you right before the show. It's just, it's so beneficial, and like you and I talked about, it's important to understand that you can't steal every idea. Because if you do, you know, I think you talked about it in the book where your kids are just, their minds are going to be blown. You're going to be overworked. You just got to take things, try it, and just understand that, you know, just take bits and parts of it and use it to your advantage.
Well, so what advice would you give to other teachers who are just starting or who will be starting soon?
Take risk, you know, be brave, take risks, get on social media, you know, find your PLN, you know, read Kids Deserve It, read read those books, because I remember when I accepted the job here, I moved down here within weeks, because I really wanted to get acquainted, and it was so lonely. But then at the same time, I was reading those books, and it just lit that fire under me. And without your book, without the other books, my classroom right now, there's a reason why I'm in it right now, is it wouldn't be like this without social media, without those books. And so just take risks, take chances, because we all know we're going to make mistakes. And the worst thing is you can learn from it and then grow. You know, I always joke with parents, you know, I'm like, you know, I think I'm learning more than the kids are this year. And it's so true.
All right, Jordan, every week we like our guests to leave a challenge for our viewers. What's your challenge for the week?
All right. Well, I actually have 2 challenges. The first one is going out to my school, because we've talked a lot about social media tonight, and since now I'm involved in it, I challenge my school this week to create a Twitter account. My second challenge goes out to everyone watching, and it kind of relates to my blog. So if you haven't read my blog, check it out. But I challenge everyone to celebrate maybe a day that they dread in the week. Maybe there's a time in the day, or maybe there's, whether you're an educator, maybe there's like a school subject that you're like, I don't like teaching this, but you have to. So I challenge everyone to pick something that you dread and to make it fun, you know, and then tag Kids Deserve It.
Awesome. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on with us today and sharing a little bit about you and your first year and getting on here. We appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, guys.
We want to thank everybody for watching the show, and remember to tweet us using the hashtag KidsDeserveIt or @KidsDeserveIt on social media. We hope you join our Twitter chat on Wednesday and check out our guests next week as we interview Cornelius Minor. Hope everybody has a great week.